welcome to the next part of our discussion about relationships. So we've talked about deterioration and how it's a weakening of the ties that bind, and that happens in two steps. First, there's the intrapersonal dissatisfaction. You're wondering, is this really worth it? Is this worth the time? Is this what I want? Do I see a future here? And then you move on to interpersonal, because the other person's going to figure out that you're backing away and being weird, and then they're going to go, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. Oh, nothing. It'll become between you, and you grow farther apart. And then the last thing we did was to make a list of the symptoms of a relationship that's in deterioration. We talked about how you spend less time together. We talked about how conflicts are more common and more difficult to solve. That you still feel lonely, even though you can have somebody right next to you, because the three intimacies of physical, intellectual, and emotional, they're gone. And so you miss talking, you miss sharing, you miss that connection. There's a general unhappiness, because when you're in a bad relationship, it's a contagion, it spreads. And so when you aren't happy with your relationship, it's hard to go out other places and find happiness. But when things are going well in your relationship, you can be unhappy at school and come back to that relationship to find strength. We talked about how people can easily fight about financial difficulties, that it's really hard for two people to agree about how to spend money the same way. We talked about how you seldom smile, and you touch less, and you don't talk. And there was something else I wanted to add, is that there is an increase in fault finding. It is so easy to find fault when you're looking for it. And you rarely compliment. Rarely compliment. So there's an increase of fault finding, and you rarely compliment. Because it's difficult when you are seeing so many flaws. You will see it over and over. So when the person, it's weakening and they're annoying you, or you're not happy with the way they're acting, there he goes, doing it again. I hate it when it does that. There you go, doing it again. There, and you'll keep seeing that same thing. And then once you find that, it's so much easier to find more faults, because we all have plenty of faults to be found, and then this gives you the opportunity to just keep finding them. And when you're finding and focusing on faults, you're not going to compliment them, and so there's not going to be that positive energy in the relationship. So we talked about how if you are unhappy with this list and you're tired of feeling like that, the number one option would be to get a new relationship. That's what part of life is about, is imagining this funnel of relationships, and how here's your dating pool. And each time you date somebody new, each time you have a relationship, and you realize, okay, it's not a failure to break up. It doesn't mean that you are broken or that you've done something wrong. It just means that you're getting closer and closer to figuring out what you want in a partner, what you liked about this partner, and what you didn't like about that one. So don't think of breaking up as failure, thinking about getting closer to your future. So my first option is, if you look at this giant list and you're tired, get a new one. I promise you that there is a puzzle piece that will fit what you want. Now, if you say, no, Tanya, I need to try, I'm going to teach you about repair. So, as I have already mentioned with repair, is that it's optional. There is no amount, remember you can exit at any time, there's no amount of you owe me, I forgave you, everyone deserves a second chance, but we've been together for 3 years. You don't have to do that. It's optional. This list, if it's too much, then move straight to dissolution. You do not have to go through repair, okay? So this is optional. But if you decide that you want to try and give it a go, it's going to happen in 2 stages. Everything seems to be happening in stages. So the first is intrapersonal. Intrapersonal. Okay, so here's the letters that we're focusing on, the RA, which means that it's within. Okay, intrapersonal repair. This is going to happen inside of you. At no point will it do any good in your relationship to make a list of all of your partner's faults and flaws and things that drive you crazy and things that they're going to have to change if this is going to work. You don't say, this is where you're wrong. You have to do all the changing. That becomes more of a battle, and people become defensive, and then you have to strike back. So it's not about them. This part is about you, your intrapersonal repair. So what you have to do here is consider what went wrong. Okay, so you have to consider what went wrong, and then consider, again, changing your own, okay, this is your own behaviors and or your expectations. Your own behaviors and your own expectations. Okay, so first let's break this apart. Consider what went wrong. And this is hard to do, to find out, okay, what role might I have played in this? What did go wrong? So in my former situation, it's easy to say what went wrong. You know, he got his mistress pregnant. There you go, that's what went wrong. And it would be easy to blame him, and of course I did for a bit. And then as I took more time and I stepped back and I started to heal, what went wrong? I remember earlier in our marriage that there was a discussion, and he was saying, I never see you. And I was like, oh, it's fine, because we were young and we were newlyweds. You're supposed to work hard. So you work hard, you buy a car, you buy a house, you move forward, and there's life. And instead, when he said, you work too much, I never see you, I had 2.5 jobs. It was my first year of full-time teaching, and I was teaching 6th graders, which takes a lot of energy. And but I was making more money working part-time as a food server 2 nights a week than I was actually making full-time as a teacher. So it was hard to get rid of the serving job. And then on the weekends, on Saturdays, I would teach driver's ed part-time because it paid well, and I thought that's what you do. So I had 2.5 jobs, and at the time, he only had a half of a job, moving toward more. So what went wrong? I worked too much. That's what went wrong. Sure, he made his decisions, and I'm not saying that anybody that's ever been cheated on or anything, that you did anything to deserve it. I didn't deserve it. However, I need to be brave enough to say what went wrong. And I worked too much. So then I move on to this, consider changing your own behaviors. Now, this is the key word, consider. It doesn't mean that, oh, I've got to do all of this. Because what if, as I was considering my behaviors, if he said, or I thought about quitting teaching. Should I quit teaching? Well, I could consider that, but that's what I went to school for. I had wanted to be a teacher ever since I was young, and so I don't think that. But consider changing. What about driver's ed on Saturdays? Was that something that I really needed to do? Or was that just extra stuff so I could get my car faster and get into a house faster? So I need to consider that. What am I willing to change, and what needs to be held as important to me? So consider changing your own behaviors. Let's see, if in the relationship somebody is saying you spend too much time with your friends, or you stay at work too long, there's a lot of things that can happen. So then you have to consider changing those behaviors. If they say that you talk to your mom too much, you spend too much time with your family, that's a behavior. You have to consider that. Do you want to spend less time with your family, or is your family very important to you and that's not something that you want to give up? Because that's where you get some strength. Again, remember the puzzle piece? If you love being with your family and that's where you get your strength, you can find somebody who feels that way about family too. You don't have to say, well, this person doesn't like my family, so, you know, it's about sacrifices. If family is important to you, you can find somebody that feels that way. Changing your own behaviors. You work too much. Your job is too, takes you too far away. There's a lot of different things. And you have to decide, is that something that you're willing to give up? And you shouldn't always say, I'll do anything. Anytime you say those words, I'll do anything, that's not going to repair your relationship. That's just a Band-Aid over it. I'll do anything. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. I'll do anything. You shouldn't be willing to do anything to stay together. You deserve to be happy. You deserve your goals and your dreams. So you have to consider those. Your expectations. Maybe your expectation is that you see each other every day. And that's an okay expectation to have. If you want that, there is someone that will want that also. However, if you think, well, I guess I don't need to see him every day. You know, I do have a lot of stuff, and she has a lot of stuff. So maybe we can, you know, talk every day, but we don't have to see each other every day. And if you're okay with that, then okay, you can say, I'm considering that, changing that expectation. But you don't have to. Again, think about what's important to you in a relationship, and whatever it is that's important, you can find it. If you realize that, okay, I might be overreacting, I might be being a bit controlling, I might be too intense, whatever, then you can say, okay, I am willing to change this behavior or change this expectation. So this is happening within you. If it were me, I would actually have to write things down. This is where you are using your brain. It's important to remember this, that you're using your brain in this stage of the process because you're thinking about things. And you have to use your brain here because pretty soon you're going to be dealing with your heart. So when we talk about on the inside, then you have to take it so it's between the two of you. And if something's between the two of you, it's interpersonal. So now we have interpersonal, and look here we have the ER, okay, so that means between. Interpersonal repair. So it's between the two of you, and this is basically where you discuss issues. You discuss your issues and talk about what you are willing to do. You talk about what you're willing to do. What you will do and what you want the other person to do. What are you willing to do and what you want the other to do. Okay. So the way I look at this, and I imagine it in my mind, is like a boxing match. For those of you that have watched boxing matches, in between the rounds, the boxer goes back to the corner. And at the corner, he's with the coach, and the coach is there, and she's explaining things. This is the way that the roundhouse? I don't know what that is. This is the way this is coming. You should bob and weave. You should do this, and you kind of get your game together so that then you're ready to go back into the ring. This is how I look at this. This is me going to the corner and thinking about, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what's happening. I feel comfortable with this. Then I take that information, and I'm ready to go and meet with the other person. And I know that this is boxing and you're battling and things, but it's the concept of I do my own thing so that then I can engage better. So now you're sharing, you're discussing your issues. What did you decide up here? And you discuss it. And you say, I really want to be with somebody who wants to call, who wants to see me every day. And so then you talk about those things. The reason that you need to use your brain here is because once you're with the other person, your heart has quite a bit to say. You've been intimate with this person. You've loved them. And to now talk about leaving, that's really difficult. And so your heart will go, but I love you. And so then sometimes, but I love you takes over. And you sort of forget all of this stuff that you thought about with your brain. So that's why I would write it down, is because if I get too emotional, then I don't think clearly sometimes. Well, I can still think and cry at the same time, by the way. But it just would help guide my process to know, okay, I know that I love you, but this is what I need. Here's the most difficult part about repair that most people don't consider. In order for repair to work, you have to have two things. Number one, you have to be willing to walk away. If you're not willing to walk away, then you're at the other side of, I'll do anything. And if you're going to do I'll do anything, you're going to fall back into this repair over and over and over. Because what has changed? What's different? If you were fighting about work hours before, and then but I love you, I'll do anything. Then did you get a new job? Did you talk to your manager? Did anything happen? Because if not, over and over and over. You can't do that. And so you have to be willing to walk away. But the other part of it is that you have to be open to change. You have to be open to this discussion. So that's the part about repair, is that you're ready. You're ready to make this work because of the changing in behaviors and expectations. You're presenting that, but you also have to be ready to walk away. And that's the part that is sometimes challenging. Remember how I said it takes leaps of courage to move through? The courageous part of here is saying, you deserve someone that can give you that. So if in this conversation, you decide that you want somebody that can do A, B, and C. You want those three things. It's important to you. It's one of your pillars, so to speak. So if you want A, B, and C, the brave, courageous thing for you to do would be to say, I just can't give that to you right now. That's not where I am. That's not what I want. You deserve someone who can give that to you. Do you see how that's actually the courageous thing? That's actually the loving thing? To say, I can't give you those things that you need, those things that you deserve. And so that's how you kind of let them be free. Okay? So two things. You have to be willing to walk away, but you also have to be willing to do the behaviors that you have agreed to. Okay? So those are your two steps of the repair, the intrapersonal and the interpersonal. Make sure you remember intra, inter. All right. So you've been through this and it just didn't go the way you wanted it to, or the person said you deserve someone who can give you something more. You've had that conversation. Or on the other hand, you've looked at this list and you're like, you know what, I'm tired, I'm out. And you just decide it's not worth the repair, we've tried it before, or I'm just tired. Then you can go straight to dissolution. So, dissolution. Dissolution. Dissolution is cutting. Cutting the ties that bind. So, in deterioration, we were looking at weakening of the ties that bind. We are cutting it off at this point. We cut it off. So everything else that we've talked about happened in stages, so of course this is going to happen in stages too. So this is the flip-flop of getting together, right? The flip-flop of getting together. So the first is the two of you have to agree. So if it's between the two of you agree, we have interpersonal separation. Okay, interpersonal separation. The two of you, whether you agree with it or not, the two of you understand or know that you're broken up. I once had a friend who the boy was trying to break up with her, and she's like, but I'm in this relationship too, and I don't want to break up. Why did you ask me what my feelings were? If one person wants to break up, you're broken up. So that's the conversation that you have of, we're not going to be together anymore. So interpersonal separations between the two of you, you decide that this is no longer going to be a relationship. So because it's the flip-flop of intimacy, so the two of you have decided, now the rest of the world knows, right? So then the second part is social separation. Okay, so in interpersonal separation, this is where you live separate lives. Those three words, live separate lives, very, very tricky. I bet you when you leave school, when you go home from work, when you have a regular routine, there is the same person that you call all the time once you finish with your classes. You know your partner. You know your partner's work schedule. You know when the grandma's birthday is. You know about a job interview. You know about that stressful thing that's coming up because your lives have been intertwined. And now all of a sudden you have to live a separate life? Yeah. And in the beginning, at this stage, it's a decision that you make multiple times a day. So when you get out of class, your first instinct is to call. Nope. Nope. Not going to do that. Later in the day, when you know that it's 3 o'clock and they're going to work, okay, nope, I'm not going to text. I'm not going to drive by. And you have to constantly remind yourself, don't. Because what good comes from that reaching out, making that connection, keeping the communication going? Sometimes the person that is the breaker-upper, the one that feels like they're a monster, that they're mean, you broke my heart, you're the bad guy, or you're the rude woman, whatever. Because they did love you at one point, and it doesn't feel good to be the monster. And you do care, and so then you text, and you say, just making sure that you're okay. Okay, that's to make you feel better. That's not going to make them feel better, because all you're saying is, there's a chance. That's all we that have been dumped, that's all we hear. There's a chance. And we tend to think that if we stay back long enough and we let you have your space, sow your oats, let you grow and develop, that then you'll come back to us, because you'll remember the awesome person that we are, the relationships that we had. So every time you keep that connection, we just keep holding on. You think you're being nice by letting us down gently, but you're not. You're dragging it out so that we can't move on. We can't make that cut. So don't text, don't email, don't contact. Let them heal. So those of us who have been dumped, sometimes we come up with reasons why we want to see the person that broke up with us. You know, I've got your jacket, can I stop by? Over at your house, you have my mechanical pencil, I need to stop by. And so we come up with these reasons why we have to see each other, so that when we see them, we probably look super cute, and we try to play it cool, and just remind them of why we're here. But what good comes from that? Do you think that the person that broke up with us is going to, oh, how sweet, you came here for your mechanical pencil? That's not endearing to them. It's kind of pathetic. I did it, I know. But you have to realize that to them, all that's doing is making us seem more unappealing, actually. So creating and keeping those connections are not good. So let's say that you know, yes, Tanya, I know not to keep those connections, but somebody else keeps contacting you. What do? You say, I don't think that we should communicate anymore. We both need to move on. And end the text. And if they text you again, you do not respond. And if they text you again, you do not respond. And if they get mean about how rude you are and call you names and you did all of this, you do not respond. Anytime you respond, you're just giving fuel to the fire, and you don't want to do that. Now, if they are illogical or a little crazy, I don't know what you want to call it, then you can do things like block your number. You need to make sure you don't follow on Facebook. What good is going to come from that? What are you hoping to see when you check them out on Facebook? Are you hoping to see that they're still up there as in a relationship? Do you want to see pictures of you still on the Facebook page? Or do you want to see that person happy with someone else? What good comes from looking at them on Facebook? How can you live your own life if you're still looking back at the past? You've got to cut those ties that bind. And then once you have your social separation, people know about it, and they can support you in some of those living a separate life ideas. But at this point, you basically return to being single. So you return to being single, and again, this is much more than a button that you click on Facebook. Oh, I'm single because 10 minutes ago I got dumped. This is returning to single, meaning you have healed your heart, that you're not hanging on to the hurt, the pain, the bitterness, the disappointment of the relationship, that you've actually taken some time, you've grown, you've healed your heart, and you're ready. You're ready for something new. You're ready to try. You're ready to get closer to that puzzle piece that you're looking for. So you return to the single scene. Everybody knows it. Unfortunately, sometimes too close together, friends say, hey, let's go find a hookup. That'll make you feel better. Or, oh, I know the perfect person. You guys should go on a date. It'll make there's plenty of fish in this. That doesn't really help. This is the point where you are ready and you're saying, I want to do this. And if friends say, hey, I met somebody, I want you to meet them, you're like, okay. And people know that you're single, and they're supportive of that generally. So you're not taking their calls anymore, you're ready to move on, and everyone knows that. So that is the disillusion. Cut those ties. Hardest thing to do, especially now with technology. Cut those ties, because really, what good is going to come from it? Not much. So this is all of the stages of relationship development: contact, involvement, intimacy, deterioration, repair, and dissolution. So on the quiz, you need to know all of these things. Some of the harder parts are knowing the difference between interpersonal, which is between the two. Anytime there's discussion between you, it's inter. Anytime you involve the rest of the world, it's social. Intra happens within. So remember those stages, and remember that it's a process that we all go through. You deserve to be happy. You deserve your puzzle piece. You deserve somebody that wants the same thing as you. And that's what this unit is about finding someone who might be interested in the same things you are. And if you're not there, then finding someone who is. It's important stuff. It's sometimes not fun to talk about, but it's an important thing that we do. The flirting is always fun, but we have to deal with some of the other stages as well. So that's relationships. Remember that it does take effort. You do have to care for the person, and you have to sometimes put their needs above your own, but it shouldn't be exhausting. So happy dating. Remember that it also works with friendships, with roommates, sometimes with brothers and sisters. You can have the same thing about how they put pressure on you. It works with all of these relationships. So good luck with that, and we can talk about any examples in class.